Welcome back to Unblurring the Unknown. I'm your host, Dominic, and we're back this week. And I kind of had a very short research week. So, because of personal reasons, went on a little mini vacation. So, I decided to go on a route that was currently in the news, and it led me to this topic, as it is something that's actually gone viral recently in the news. And to join me for this episode, I have my brother, who is going to cast his opinions on some of the theories that I have put together for this. Like I said, this is probably going to be a little shorter episode than what you're used to, only because I had a very short week, but I still wanted to put together a episode for you guys this week, albeit it might be shorter than what you're used to. Say hi, Garrik.
Hey guys, what's happening?
So, now let's get into the story. So, today's episode is on the face peelers of Peru. Now, if you have not heard this story, I'm going to go into it a little bit with you. So, starting in July of this year, the residents of a small jungle village in Peru have been having encounters with beings that they cannot explain. The locals have given them the name Las Pelicaras, and if I say that wrong, I do apologize. I'm trying my best. If I say any words wrong, I'm trying my best, obviously. The locals call them Las Pelicaras, and this is because of local legends in that area of creatures that bear the same name. So they call them that, and that translates to English to the face peelers. So, it all started in July, and it has continued into this month of August. The members of the Iquitu tribe have been reporting these creatures and the bizarre behavior of them at the small village of Alto Nanay near the town of Iquitos in Peru. Now, these residents of the village of Alto Nanay have reported being attacked by 7-foot-tall, quote-unquote, aliens that are supposedly covered in armor and levitate and or fly. They have confirmed to have attacked and supposedly tried to kidnap a 15-year-old girl, cutting her on the neck, and this actually sent her to the hospital. While this is all going on, the residents of this village have looked towards the Peruvian military for aid on the issue, and this has kind of received mixed reaction. The military is over a 10-hour river trip away from the village, so it's not easy for the military to get there to begin with. So, if I was the military, if somebody said, okay, we're being attacked by aliens, I wouldn't necessarily take them fully seriously in the first place, obviously. So I'd understand them not wanting to take a 10-hour river trip to come to this village who supposedly says they're being attacked by aliens. In response to these encounters and the harassment the villagers faced, because as time went on, these encounters just got worse and they just kept happening, the villagers have started going on night patrols to fend off the intruder. Intruders, it hasn't really been said on how many there necessarily is. Now, that being said, with them going on these night patrols in the village, taking basically rotations on who goes out, tries to hunt these so-called aliens down. The villagers have reported that they have been impervious to all types of weapons the villagers have tried to use. This even includes all sorts of firearms, and they've even said the aliens are stated to be wearing some sort of armor, and when shot by firearms or weapons, they seem not to be bothered by them or even acknowledge they got hit at all. Some reports saying that they even just seem to phase out of the way. So there's a whole bunch of this, and then obviously the icing on the cake of this whole situation is that these aliens are reported to be flying by using some sort of levitation board or jetpack to fly. Now, what inspired me to look at this and to figure out, what's kind of going on with this situation, another podcast, Theories of the Third Kind, I'll give them a free plug, did an episode on it this past week, kind of got me inspired a little bit to look into this topic, and it's kind of interesting, but it also makes you wonder, is this legitimate? Is it not really legitimate? You know, it's kind of everything they said is hard to believe, but it's almost so hard to believe that you want to believe it. And that kind of leads me to a couple theories, and that's why Garrik is here to help share some of his theories. So when this story eventually became viral, Peruvian law enforcement eventually did go to the village, and they offered their suspect as to what it is. Now, according to the Peruvian law enforcement, they think it is illegal gold mining syndicates that are using jetpacks to scare the villagers away from their mining operations. Now, if that sounds far-fetched, I mean, I don't know the history of gold miners using jetpacks, but, I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but, I mean, the way this world is going, it doesn't necessarily surprise me at all. But that's what law enforcement says, and if you look this article up, pretty much every article just says now, okay, Peruvian military says, you know, quote-unquote aliens or the face peelers of Peru are actually gold miners with jetpacks, and that's what it is, end of story, end of discussion. So that being said, that's my first theory, is the Peruvian military's theory, is that this is illegal gold miners using jetpacks to scare the villagers into staying away from their mining operations, because gold mining is such a booming business and such a illegal business in Peru, especially when, you know, the drug cartels get involved and everything like that. It's a whole mess. Bringing that into a couple other theories that I've put together. So, second theory being illegal logging. So now this area in South America in general has been known to have high levels of illegal logging, and this plays into the effect that this is not illegal gold miners, but rather illegal loggers. And they are, again, trying to scare the villagers away from the area so that they can harvest the area for lumber. That is the second theory. The third theory is that this is actual aliens, mostly because weapons don't seem to hurt them at all. You know, they haven't reported to kill the quote-unquote aliens. You know, it seems to me that if these were gold miners, and even if they were wearing some sort of armor, if they got shot, you know, there would be, you'd hear you hit something. You know, they can't even hit whatever it is. Like, it doesn't even seem bothered by weapons. And I feel like even if you're wearing armor or not, if you get shot, there's going to be some sort of reaction. So to not hear that kind of casts doubt onto the illegal gold miner theory, or just illegal jetpack flyer guy people in general. And then lastly, this region in South America, and obviously Latin America, and even the whole world, you know, has issues when it comes to child labor. So could this be possibly, again, could this be drug cartels trying to abduct kids for, may it be sex trafficking or trafficking in general, or even, you know, child labor for farming of drugs or something like that. And that I could believe to a certain extent because of the story of them trying to abduct the 15-year-old. Now, that being said, there's been no other accounts of anybody else trying to be abducted. I don't know if that's because the villagers stepped up their efforts. They tried to abduct somebody and it didn't go great. So I'm on the fence with all of these theories, and I'll kind of give it to Garrik and kind of have him present his theories. So I presented you with 4 theories. Do you like any of them? Do you have a personal thought? Kind of, what do you think that this could be?
Well, for starters, why are they called face peelers?
So the face peelers moniker comes from local urban legend. So there's local urban legend about creatures that would peel the faces off of people.
But the quote-unquote aliens aren't, like, peeling faces or anything?
No. So they gave... So that is kind of contradictory to the name, obviously. But the locals gave them the name of Las Pelacaras because of local legend of, you know, creatures that would peel the faces off their victims. So because of these so-called aliens being in the area and them not being able to rationally explain them, I can imagine they turn to folklore, and that being, okay, this is the only thing that somewhat describes what we're talking about, so we're going to call them the face peelers because this is the actual face peelers that legend is talking about. So that kind of gives background to the face peelers thing.
Okay, and you said there was a 15-year-old
Mm-hmm.
who was abducted?
Yeah, so there was a 15-year-old girl who was attempted to be abducted. She wasn't abducted, but in the process got cut in her neck and had to go to the hospital. But that was the only, quote-unquote attack that these so-called aliens had on people. They'd show up in the night and would basically harass the villagers, and the real villagers would obviously defend the village, shoot at them, and would really have no luck at doing so. But that was the only actual attack that seems to be documented in any way or in the news in any way.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, this whole thing sounds very like the Predator, or just something wild and crazy and weird. And I'm not really sure what I believe, because, I mean, if you believe in aliens and hear about the stories of aliens, there's not really any encounters that I have heard or I've seen, that anybody speak about, armored aliens that can phase in and out and fly around. It's just not something we've heard a lot about, and I'm not saying, theoretically if aliens existed, there couldn't be ones that could do those things, but I don't know. It seems pretty far-fetched to me. I think it's something to do. I think it could be a syndicate of some sort, whether that be the loggers or the miners or something, or even like drug cartels or something like that. I think this might have been a story that mixed with real life things, whether it be loggers trying to scare these people away from their village so that way they could log through it. There are tons of instances where, illegal loggers or illegal miners use fear and local folklore to drive out enemy forces. I believe it was in, oh God, you can't quote me on this.
I definitely won't quote you on it.
World War II, I want to say it was in one of the Pacific Islands. The United States Army spread legend about a local monster was in the area and that they had seen it. And just the U.S. troops spreading this rumor eventually got back to the Pacific Island fighters. And
the Japanese, right?
And the Japanese, or, again, whoever they may be, I'm not 100% sure. Whoever they may be, this legend, or the story that, hey, this thing is in the mountains and the caves on the mountain, and it's active, it's hunting. And the Japanese or the Pacific Force, they up and left just because of a story, right? They had no evidence to prove their claims, but they were so superstitious and believed so much in their folklore that a story of a legend, of a legendary monster being in their area drove them off. And I think this is something similar to that. Again, I think it might be a syndicate of some sort of loggers, miners, traffickers, drug cartels, something like that. I think it's a much more down-to-earth theory, or a much more down-to-earth thing that has maybe been, blown out of the water just a little bit, because it is it's just some bold claims.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bold claims coming out of Peru. So,
I mean, I think it could be. I think it could be a combination of those things. I think the Pacific Island thing is something I'm going to look into, for sure, just to see if that, because that sounds like a story that I have heard, but it's something that I should probably look into. But I'm curious as to, if this was illegal gold miners, are they just trying to, did they hurt the girl or try to kidnap her just as fear mongering, as a scare tactic to try and get them out of the area just so they can get, the gold that's in that area? I mean, I could believe that. I mean, there was, they've taken pictures and videos, and I'm actually going to show you this picture right here of a girl holding a cell phone of what they looked like. And honestly, it, to me, she's holding a picture of it and it looks like a guy in a jetpack. And it, like, every other picture, and Theories of the Third Kind looked into this too. Any other picture that was out there was super duper blurry, video quality was terrible, and, obviously you're looking at an area that, is a 10-hour river trip from, really anything. So you're kind of running into that issue of, how great is their technology to begin with. So the crappy pictures, crappy video kind of makes sense. But yeah, I mean, that picture looks like a dude in a jetpack.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like if you look up the army prototypes for the jetpacks, it looks like a dude in a suit of some kind piloting a jetpack.
Well, I mean, the jetpacks are becoming, I think, a lot more mainstream now where you can get them. But
they can't be a cheap thing to buy by any means.
But if you're an illegal gold miner and you have money to burn and you can buy a jetpack, would you not want a jetpack?
I mean, sure. Again, I think they maybe purchased this thing to use as a way to scare the villagers.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, it could be some sort of government testing, and they're just, they're maybe a test either by the Peruvian government or by a neighboring government testing out experimental technology in the jungle instead of, these could be, unsanctioned tests, not supposed to be really done, so they're doing it in the middle of the jungle in Peru, and they know, maybe they know the locals will just blame it.
I mean, I can kind of buy into that theory because obviously, the military didn't initially respond, and then the story went viral, and then the military comes out and says, okay, it's illegal miners and jetpacks. So,
yeah, to me,
it could be, okay, hey, the government's testing something or the government's doing something, and we don't want this tribe getting too close, so let's scare them a little bit into thinking that, there's aliens or there's legend or whatever. But then yet again, the area is so remote, like, I feel like if the government was doing something, the locals would see some activity of the government being in the area. But, I mean, we all know how governments work, so, again, you're asking yourself a very similar question.
Yeah, I think it might be just because of initially the no comment, right? So the village was like, hey, Peruvian government, come investigate this. And they kind of avoided it until the story went viral and everybody was talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they just threw a theory of, okay, what's a problem? Illegal gold mining. Okay. And then just was like...
Well, I mean, I think that's a genuine theory, obviously. I don't think that the gold mine, if the military threw out the gold mining theory, I don't think that's hogwash by any means. I think that's like a legitimate theory. But obviously, when I was listening to the Theories of the Third Kind episode on this, they talked about that there were similar stories in South America of tribes getting harassed by, individuals that they didn't know, whether it be miners or whatever, and it seemed like they were just trying to scare people out of the area to get legal resources. So I think it could be a couple different things. I'm leaning obviously towards the gold mining thing only because that seems like it makes sense, or if it's illegal loggers, or maybe it's some I don't really buy this. I mean, the child labor, abducting children, sex trafficking thing, or whatever. I think
if they're in the market to
I think there'd be more. Like somebody, like a kid would actually be taken, or there was other attempts to take children, I think I could buy that. But since it's the one isolated thing, I don't necessarily buy that theory, but I still want to pose that theory because it kind of made a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I don't
think. I think, and this is my opinion, this is just going to be my opinion, that it's either A, the government testing prototype military equipment, and they're trying to scare the villagers away from a specific area because that's where they're testing whatever. They don't want them there. They're testing this equipment. Again, I don't know how advanced the Peruvian military is, but again, we're also talking about governments, and governments hide things, and they don't want to talk about things. So I think that this is either A, the government hiding things, and they're using, people on jetpacks to basically scare the villagers and, basically use intimidation tactics to keep them away from a specific area. Or I do buy the gold miner thing. I think it's very reasonable, with the value of gold where it is. I think it's reasonable to say, okay, you have 3 guys on jetpacks who at night scare the villagers because they don't want them to get close to the gold mines, or they don't want them figuring out that they're illegally mining gold.
I don't buy the gold mining thing at all.
So do you think you're leaning more towards a government thing?
I think it's a government thing. I think it's a government testing equipment, and they just decide to do it in the remote parts of the jungle. Of course, they're running it at night. Think about how many times you see any, local military operation. It's always at night. It's never in the daytime. It's just, I think it's military testing. I do. I don't think it's anything else.
Yeah.
The gold miners, there would be, you need mining equipment to mine. Mm-hmm. Mining equipment is loud. It's big. You would, if somebody was illegally mining in your area, near your village, you would have found out somebody was mining by now.
Well, maybe, but you're also talking about the jungle too. So I mean, that's a very, that's a good claim. But if the miners are mining in one specific area and they know the village is there, they're like, okay, we don't want the village finding the mine, yada yada yada. I mean, I understand that, and I think I'm kind of leaning towards the government testing thing only because once the story came viral, it seemed like the military came out and said, okay, this is, it's illegal gold miners. And it kind of seems nowadays, if you mention aliens with anything, you go viral. So I think I kind of lean towards the government thing. I mean, I think the gold miner thing could be kind of on the back burner. But I think I'm with you in terms of leaning towards that this is the government trying to cover something up. Military comes in, says, okay, you have nothing to worry about. These are gold miners. Leave them alone. Don't attack them. They won't attack you. Whatever it is. And let bygones be bygones. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting story for sure, but I think that this one is rooted strictly in real world explanation because I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the government and then just local superstition. Really, just kind of like thriving. Mm-hmm. Just somebody sees something that they immediately. Of course, this is. I'm assuming this is a poorer village, not super wealthy, not super technologically advanced.
Yeah, I mean it's in the middle of the jungle, so you're not talking.
We're not talking about
it's not a town or
a
city.
Very hustle bustle Western town.
No, it's a village.
We're talking about a village with very little technology. I'm sure there are things in the United States or even in Europe that these people have never seen before. You know what I mean? So I think it's a combination of the government, and I'm not even saying the Peruvian government. It could be another government. There could just be a deal in place that we or somebody wants to test jetpacks in a jungle style environment and the effects that it can have on that style of equipment.
Well, I mean, they could be testing other things too, and the jetpacks are the cover story. You know what I mean? Okay, we're testing this. But we don't want anybody coming close, so hey, let's do this because they won't know what a jetpack is, or they don't know how to explain what this is. So I'm I'm leaning towards the government trying to hide something from the people and something that they don't want to share.
Yeah, I think it's just a big ruse. Just an elaborate you said that the jetpacks could easily be a diversion. They're I think it's military tests to, maybe it's not for jetpacks, maybe it is for jetpacks, but maybe it's something else. And again, the jetpacks are a diversion of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think I'm going to lean towards that. I think case closed in this instance. Like I said, I do apologize for this being a shorter episode. I was just working on a lot less time this week. And I also wanted to kind of add another perspective into the story. So it wasn't just, you weren't just hearing my voice talking. But I think that's what we're going to go with. I think it's the government covering something up that they don't want people to find out, and they're using the jetpacks to scare the locals. Why their guns don't work on the people in the jetpacks? I mean, they could be wearing armor, and the locals just don't, they shoot them, or they're moving too fast. You're shooting up into the air. You're not bound to, it's hard to hit something that's flying around. Unless you're a really good shot, and I don't know what, they could be good shots, they could not be. So that's kind of a question I think that will remain unanswered. But for me, I think we both buy the government theory. So that being said, that is going to conclude today's episode of Unblurring the Unknown. Again, if you have not followed us on Instagram, it is at Unblurring the Unknown on Instagram. I will post pictures relevant to this episode as well, and all the past episodes. You can find all the pictures of the past episodes also on Instagram. I am also on YouTube. The episodes will release on YouTube hopefully the same day or the same week the episode comes out. So in case if you do not have Spotify, I am also available on YouTube. That being said, that concludes today's episode, and I will see you on the next one.